And Jill, could you please explain what non-employee labor and managed service providers are?
Absolutely. Many people would be surprised to learn that upwards of 50% of a company's workforce can be non-employee. And those non-employees can engage through a variety of types of work arrangements. They can be an employee of a temporary staffing agency. They can be engaged through a consulting firm. They could be a freelance worker or an independent worker. And the types of work they do spans a very wide variety. It can be somebody that works on the floor of a factory or is an administrative assistant filling in for a full-time employee who's on a leave of absence. It could be a specialized IT resource that does development work in real hard-to-find skill sets of coding. It could also be ongoing management consulting or tax and audit type of engagement. So what used to be leveraging non-employee labor at low skill levels now spans upwards of very, very specialized and highly paid resources as well. And as a managed service provider, it's our job to help companies make sense of how to engage all of those different channels of talent.
And Art, could you please tell us why a company would engage an MSP?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to when this industry really started to take off was right around Y2K. Clients were engaging a lot of IT workers. We thought it was going to be the end of the world. And during that process, of course, the supply was much smaller than the demand and costs were run up and people felt like they were out of control. And so that was right around the time when the MSP business really started to take off. And so the first reason they started to engage us was to get control of their costs. That has evolved dramatically since then because now they're all about visibility into what they're spending. It's amazing to talk to these large corporations that we work with and they have no idea how much they're spending in this space. And now, as more and more people are involved in this area, there's a lot more government regulation around it. Are we classifying our workers correctly? We see, problems all the time, whether it's with Uber or whether it was with Microsoft or whomever it might be, where there were issues around worker classification and the penalties associated. So there's a lot of risk mitigation involved. And then as they now try to find talent, they really need to incorporate this as the part of their strategy. You'll see clients with up to 50% of their workforce is non-employee labor. And so now what's the right strategy? Who should I engage, when and why? And this makes the job as the MSP much more complex than it used to be.
And Jill, could you please tell us which departments within companies are usually involved in managing non-employee labor?
Absolutely. This is another area that has really changed and evolved in recent years. Historically, this was seen as really a cost savings play or a procurement play. And so therefore, the CPO or the head of procurement would be the decision maker in selecting a managed service provider and managing it ongoing. What we've seen over the last few years is that human resources and even talent acquisition teams have taken an interest in this because of the importance on finding resources outside of the full-time employee base. So those two teams, procurement and HR or talent acquisition, are now teaming up and partnering and even creating new sub-departments, so to speak, to manage this kind of initiative in their company. But beyond that, that's not all. There's IT, so there's obvious technology impacts that come into play with our programs. Also finance. We do provide consolidated invoicing and payment to suppliers in that, so the finance play and the accounts payable, accounts receivable element factors in, as does legal and risk and compliance. The pace of change in the regulatory side of this continue to quicken, and so those groups are more and more interested in how they're treating their non-employee labor and not only focused on their full-time employee base.
One of the things we've seen is that audit departments are more and more involved in large corporations, and as those audits get completed, that triggers a tremendous interest in our programs.
For Worldwide Business, I'm Kathy Ireland. Thank you for watching.